All right, we are live. So awesome. Welcome everyone. We are here today with the Summer 22 residents who will introduce themselves in a moment. We'll be talking about their projects, their process, and who they are as artists. And I'm really just excited to learn more about both of them and who they're working with and how they've been developing through this residency. My name is Lydia. I'm the communications manager here at Deborah Slater Dance Theater. And this conversation is part of our programming for the Summer 22 residency. And that final performance will be later this month. So I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the conversation, but hopefully you guys all come back and witness the culminating event that these guys will be putting on. If you're watching today on our website and you want to participate in the comments, go ahead and go to the YouTube link that's just above the video, and that way you can add your comments to the live stream and we'll be taking questions from audience members that way. All right, without further ado, Deb, take it away.
Okay, I'm Deb Slater, and I've been living and working in the Bay Area for over 40 years as the director of Deborah Slater Dance Theater for 30 years and as Studio 210 director for 40. This is now our 42nd year, actually. As part of our regular programming, we now have a residency program that happens twice a year. And this is a chance for people to come in and have a space where whatever they're interested in working on, whatever questions they wanted, open space and time to think about, they could come in and they get the space, the time, and a production at the end. And the gift of that is that the audience becomes part of the conversation. And I really view it as the kind of culminating moment in that the artists first get to ask the audience any questions that they have about the working process. So for me, this is a time that doesn't have to result in a final product. It can, doesn't have to. It's just giving artists time to think. And it's not usually the gift we give ourselves. So I'm very happy that these two have done that for themselves in this. And it's also remarkable for me to get to meet all the cool people that have come through. I would like to say we've done this virtually over the whole pandemic. So we have had residencies going the whole time. We've now had 2 live shows. Is that right? We have. Astonishing. And this one will be live and virtual. We'll be live streaming it also. So anybody who lives out of town wants to come, there will be ways to connect and watch it. So I'd like it if you guys could introduce yourselves and say a little bit about what you do. And let's start with Surabhi. Take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Surabhi Bharadwaj. I'm an Indian dancer. I practice a dance form called Bharatanatyam, which is an appropriated art form. I practice it and I teach it. I'm still figuring out how to deal with it. I was born and brought up in India, Bangalore, India, and I moved to the US in 2015. I've been here in the Bay Area since then. I started a school in Dublin. I've been teaching all these wonderful children, and I have a responsibility to make the next generation of artists. So that's who I am and what I do. I'm also a recent mother, which has to do a lot with my new work. And okay, so let me introduce to you what I'm doing. I'm working on a new piece called The Maze. It's a dance, theater, music, spoken word exploration of my existence as a woman, my journey through motherhood, my choices, my influences. So I call it the maze because I constantly find myself navigating through the barriers of my mind and social barriers that are caused by hegemonic ideals. So as I'm becoming more and more aware of the patriarchy that is controlling me, I've started to question it I'm negotiating with it. I'm trying to find myself, trying to find self through my own eyes, which has been the hardest actually. So I this work is not just about my journey and experiences, but also this also reflects the journeys of women across various cultures and backgrounds. It is a work that it's actually a work that begins from the personal, but it is very much political. So I guess all work is political in this current times, but and there's no neutrality. So well, and most importantly, I've been very fortunate to collaborate with Veena Basavarajaya. She's a movement artist from Bangalore, India, who's directing and co-creating this work with me. She's been helping me realize all these questions and ideas that are in my mind into a piece of work that you all can experience. So we're also collaborating with Rupa Mahadevan, who is an amazing musician who will compose music for this work. Together we have conversations. Through our conversations, we are exploring the idea of womanhood, beauty, the womb, motherhood, and so much more, and developing this work. So that's about me and the work that I'm doing at this residency.
Take it away.
That was amazing. My name is Hector Agustin Jaime Rodriguez. I am originally from Mexicali, Baja California, Mexico. I moved here in 2017 into the Bay Area, specifically in Marine, right across the bridge, if you don't know where that is, because I didn't know where that was. But I moved there for school at Dominican University of California, where I entered the Alonso Kings Lines BFA program. I graduated from there last year, where I got to meet amazing faculty and people who taught me the amazing technique of ballet and how that I can use it in a different way that was not damaging, because I found myself finding a lot of other ballet artists struggling with how they deal with the technique. But since it was such a new information, I just, claim it and made it part of me now, which is a way that a tool that I use for my development of movement. I am working currently in the summer program residency in Codornices and Pétalos de Rosa, which comes from one of the plays of the dishes from Like Water for Chocolate, the 1992, I think, film that it's out there somewhere if you are interested in watching it. I did not want to make a piece about the movie because that would be just too long. So I took a little idea out of it, which is that little dish and plate that is presenting during the movie, where the principal character expresses her love to her beloved, and they pretty much everyone was able to sense the love and sensuality in a way that she felt for him. So I took that little nugget out of the movie, and I'm trying to expand it into more of a complex labyrinth of movement that it's dedicated to love and the exploration of the tenderness that we have to each other and to the relationships that we have to others. Yeah, that's me. Oh, and I am the artistic director of Xochipilli Dance Company, which I have recently founded, and it's now participating in this residency thanks to Deborah.
Great, fabulous. Boy, even as you're talking, both of you, I'm going, oh, I got questions. Okay, so let me just start with this. On the most basic level, has it been, for either one of you, is it useful to you to have this residency in your life? Has it affected your work? Do you have tell me some thoughts on that. I'm curious.
Oh, well, as an emerging artist who just recently graduated college, to gain that trust from someone or from a program to let you just experiment with your work and to really go deep into your artistry and see what you can do with it. It's already a great platform to have space, um, to have just the space itself. It's amazing to think that someone trusted you with that, with the intentions of what you want to do with your work. And it feels fulfilling that you know that after only a couple of months pass by and you get the acceptance letters of saying, like, we would like to provide you with this opportunity to for you to show something, to share a message, to share. We like, you believe we have something to tell through our movement and artistry and collaboration with others. So that itself, it's an amazing gift, like you said at the beginning.
Great.
Sorry, can I add? I completely agree with what Hector said, and what I would like to add is, like, having a coming from a very structured background in the art form, like, we don't get enough spaces to experiment and try something different, and to have a safe space where it allows us to expand our boundaries and think beyond and freely express. It means a lot, and to have mentorship has been amazing. Like, that just talking to someone about the work from an initial state definitely helps a lot for artists creating work. So thank you for that.
This another question I have for you. Do you have a sense of what you want the audience to come away with? Do you know yet what that is?
Yes and no. So that, as we are still figuring out, one thing I want from this work is to find common stories, for audiences to say that I relate to the story, I feel it, it's part of my journey too. That's something that I hope to find, because just to be like, okay, you're not alone, we are in this together, maybe that. But also through this residency, I'm still figuring out what we want out of this piece as well. So.
As we all noted, when Sarabi said yes and no, I will say that that's my same answer. Nevertheless, I think that I want them to have a sense of that love exists, that it is also part of what is happening in today's society, even if with all the political and all of the problems that having happening and keep happening, I feel like to have that space for healing with love and art will just love a more positive message to go out. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish here. And to just, focus on art and the beauty that we as human can create with nothing but our bodies.
So, well, listening today added to it, but one of the things that I was struck by in my conversations with both of you is that you are both dealing with beauty from different vantage points. On the one hand, for Sarabi, it's beauty as a requirement, beauty as something that's a required definition for being a female or being a value, and many other things that go with that, but it's a perspective, beauty as something to be looked at carefully as, is this a criteria for judgment? And in your case, you're bringing out beauty as a manifestation of love and care and the building of something completely different. And I'm going to make a leap, and you can tell me if I'm just talking out, making it up. But I think that part of it is your own defining what beauty is in the world and choosing to view it through your own lens. So, in many ways, both of you are trying to capture it for yourselves. But in your case, you're putting it out there as this is what I do. And the difference is that it hasn't always been presented that way. In your case, you're saying, well, let me evaluate how it's been presented and see if there's another way of looking at it. So I don't know whether, I'm not sure this is a helpful question in this moment, but do you guys have a sense of how you view beauty? Can you say something about that? Am I off base at all with this?
I will comment, and then you tell me if I'm going the right way, maybe. Um, well, for example, Surabi's making it about motherhood and whatnot. Like, that's the ultimate state of love, like being a mother, having a child, and whatnot. So she has her own relationship to love and to beauty and whatnot. And I have my own for my own reasons and background as well. So I have my family back home in Mexico and whatnot. So, like, there is a lot of similarities about what we consider beautiful. But at the same time, we were looking at it through a different lens, um, different cultures, different families, different values, and whatnot. So our approaches, even though might seem, the same concept of beauty, because ultimately artistry is taking all of the beautiful arts you have inside and taking them out into this realm, in this world. I feel like we're trying to make something beautiful out of it, of these ideas of beauty that we have.
Um, Thanks for saying that. And I would like to add from my perspective. Okay, so maze in maze, beauty is one of the aspects, like motherhood or just being women or just our journeys navigating in this maze as women. So that's about maze. But when I say just beauty, um, in my life, I have seen what I perceive beauty so far, or at least like until now, the perception of beauty for me was through others people lenses. What others saw me, that was how I defined beauty. But I'm questioning that. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand what is beauty for me, devoid of those influences that I've had. So that is what I'm trying to understand. So yeah, it's a journey. I'm still figuring out. Can beauty be different? Can beauty be seen in different things, which is not which is unconventional? How can I see beauty in those unconventional things? So yeah, that's something I'm still figuring out, and I'm trying to see what is beautiful for me in my own lens, devoid of all the.
I think that's something that you share, that you're both coming at differently. You're coming from cultural orientations that you have to look at. And you are doing that directly and taking on some of those issues. You are just making this piece out of what you perceive beauty to be. And I think that who you are filters into it, but it's not as directly in response to a cultural issue as Sarabi's dealing with. I'm looking forward to these conversations over time for both of you, because I feel like you're going to do like this in the making of what you do. But there's something very interesting to me about the fact that a cultural perception of beauty has an influence on how you see the world. And now you have to evaluate what you do with it. And these are two very different responses. Very interesting to me. And I didn't realize until I started talking to you both how much that word was even going to show up. And just now, Hector, you used the word labyrinth. And a labyrinth and a maze are slightly different, but very similar in their visuals. And I just thought that's a whole conversation that the two of you should have with each other, maybe right now, maybe at some point, about why that particular image speaks to you. and how you got there. I am actually curious to ask you, especially Hector, since we've never talked about that. That hasn't come up as a word until this moment. And I just went, oh, put that one down.
Well, if you tell me the difference between a lover and a maze, I might be more helpful right now. Because I'm not gonna act like I know.
I'm going to have to look it up so I put the right definition with the right thing. One is a series of patterns where you walk through and you end up someplace and you can get out easily. The other one intentionally makes you get lost. It's not, if you look at it, I think a maze is built somewhat symmetrically looking. And I'm going to have to look it up because I can't remember which is which. But
But also with that being said, I am also working with people that have different backgrounds than me. I have a African American queer woman and a Taiwanese woman as well, Sydney and Brooke. So they're also bringing their ancestors, their backgrounds into the creation of this and their perspective of beauty of this. So I would say this one has different entries of point of entry into what we're describing as a maze or a labyrinth, you know, but it also has this collaboration that makes it even more complex, I would think.
that's, yeah. And Sarabi, you're working with people who are close culturally, would you say?
Yes, close culturally, but are on different journeys with different experiences. But yes, very much close culturally. Um, but I have been, as part of the research, I've been talking to people from different cultures, women from different cultures and backgrounds, and just talking about their experiences and having conversations with them. So that's also influencing my work. But my collaborators, close collaborators, are culturally close to me.
Which makes how you view a particular moment probably more similar to move out of. Whereas with Hector, you're pushing on each other more, or at least introducing each other to different points of view. Do you both talk to your collaborators while you're working?
Absolutely, yes.
Very much.
Has
Yeah.
anything come up that you weren't expecting? Anything really surprising in it?
In what ways? Sorry if I may ask.
Something that came out of a person that you were working with that's really changed how you saw a moment? Or reinforced something that you didn't know if anyone else was experiencing the same way?
Mm. I would say I would say these our collaborations start with conversations and end with conversations. And more than anything, I found out about myself more through it. Like more than like I've surprised myself. So I would say that about myself. So yeah.
Can you say more about that? What's the surprise?
Um about okay, so I feel like I've come to know about myself more through these conversations. Like a lot of the things that I'm doing with this project is very new to me. Like from the I've like my art form never requires me to do improv, but I'm doing improv with in a very structured. Like my training has been only in Bharatanatyam, and my and from these conversations that we have, I'm in the studio space and asked to move, keeping all that in mind. It's like those conversations marinate in my mind, and it becomes a movement, and I don't even know about. Like I didn't even know I could do that. So yeah, a lot of, like I'm learning so much about myself, and it's not just moving around. It's like it's coming out from the body, soul, everything. I'm putting myself into it, right? So that is something that was the biggest surprise for me, because having never done improv and from a classically trained body, doing something like this just by conversing with uh, you know people. So yeah, that was the biggest surprise through this, creating this work, and several others. I It's hard to like pick few things, but yeah, every day, after every conversation, I have something new that I know about myself. So
It's also interesting to realize that you both are trained in classical forms.
yes.
But from my conversations with Hector, they came to it from not classical forms to get to a classical form. So it's almost the reverse experience. Interesting. Do you want to talk about your background a little bit? What led you into ballet? Because that is fascinating.
Well, I started with jazz when I started doing all of the dance stuff. Then I was always inclined more towards ballet. I just felt like it was something that I had to do somehow. But I did not train enough or young enough when I came here and accepted to the Alonso King's Lines Ballet. And it was like my first year actually like practicing ballet 5 days a week, and to me that was like the most amazing thing that could happen. So coming from the desire of wanting to want more. Um, but yeah, I've not just learning the technique, but learning also the philosophy of Alonso King's Lines Ballet and how the former lines dancers also talk about the way they used to move, the way they move now, how their bodies have evolved to find other connections other than just balletic, but with themselves through this technique. It felt revealing because I never thought that I could achieve that type of almost a spiritual level of connection to yourself while dancing. And that's how I became to these ideas of what I thought beauty would look like in my body from now on, and reclaiming it because, having also danced in Mexico, it was expected to me to dance like a man, whatever that meant,
Yeah.
and I have never felt like a man in my life. So like, I don't know what that means. But to not have that as a require when I was dancing here in San Francisco and like in the lines program and whatnot, it was just really eye opening to know that I could be my own entity on stage and invite others, collaborators, to do the same thing, which is also how my collaborators are very integrated into this. Brooke Terry just graduated from the program as well, so she joined after the first month. So it's been really amazing to know that we have a common ground where to start from, because we do have some similar, background in our training and whatnot with Gaga, with Limon, and all of these other things that the program offered. And also with Sydney, I met back in 2015 on my first summer intensive, where I was able to have a scholarship to study for lines. So everything just having, landing in the right spots. And I really do trust them and what they have to say about the piece in general.
That's great. There is a question from the audience asking you each what you think the artistic risks are that you're taking for yourselves.
I think just in general to be open, because first day I came with my notebook full of notes, and I was like, this is what we're gonna do, and 5, 6, 7, 8, but it really doesn't work like that when you're in the front of the room. You really have to not only create movement, but to explain to your dancers what you want to create, like the inside, the area of the perimeters that you want to give them. And the risks that I'm taking as a choreographer is that I don't really care if they go over the perimeters as long as it's intentional. As long as there's something behind it, there is a reason of why you decided to do that choice. And I mean it in a choreographic way. Like I put my hand over here, but they did it over there. And I was like, I am in love with what you just created. So to keep that window and doors open to know that both collaborators can fuse with your movement and with your and artistries together and intertwined together. I think it's a risk itself because it could go chaotic. Let's be honest, 3 people in a room talking about art, trying to make a dance. But to know that that can go smoothly because in general, people who you work with or decide to work with are in the same wavelength, or they're trying to be some sort of agreement of what it's trying to be created. So yeah.
That's a very good question. Thanks for asking who did. Okay, so I feel like in world generally there's a need to categorize things, right? So I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer. I'm expected to dance in a certain way, and what I'm doing through this work is definitely doesn't fall in that category. So it's again like opening my boundaries, pushing my boundaries, and that is a big risk, which is which I took some time to get used to, and I don't expect this. I don't expect my audience to get used to it all of a sudden, because I had that transitional phase where I had to open up to it. And but one thing I would say is the only reason I'm I'm able to do this is because it's very authentic. It's coming from within. It's coming from my body, heart, soul, everything. So, and that's how, even though all this is new, it's still coming from my everything that I'm doing is still coming from my training. It's influenced by my training, but it doesn't look or feel like, may feel different. And that's a I feel that's a big risk. At the same time, it has been I do feel like, why did I have to take all this on me? Like, I was happy doing my own thing. Like, I was happy, not bothered about what's happening. Now that I'm aware, now that I'm into it, there's no going back. And it's not I don't want to go back also, but as in I'm now talking about the content that I'm presenting, right? It's the form is one thing, the content, I'm very much lean to presenting what really moves me, what I feel strongly about. And that again is also risky with what I'm presenting, because it is political, because it can trigger some people in different ways. So yeah, there's a lot of risks involved, but what's life without risks?
There's something interesting too about every art form that has changes comes from someone going, no, that doesn't speak to me exactly. Let me try this. I'm just thinking even of the beginning of modern dance, which is basically, wasn't that long ago. I mean, Martha Graham and the people before her, Ruth St. Denis, people like that, really stepped away from ballet. Isadora Duncan, those are all people in the last 2 centuries. That's just not very long ago that all of these things are happening. So that's really how art goes forward. And then the question, I mean, to me, it changes the definition of who you are. You are a technician or you're an artist, and technicians are brilliant in taking a form that's given to them and making that live on stage. But to be an artist with that, you have to be willing to open up to the uncomfortable and the questions and all of the things that make you want to wring your hands while you're in rehearsal because it's not quite anything yet. Or what is it that you're trying to do? God only knows, but you're going to have to keep trying to find out. So I think that for both of you, yes, that you're both struggling with that. Jessica wrote that both of you are working in a less structured way than perhaps you're used to. And do you think this openness to risk and a new approach will carry into future work? It's a very good question.
Yes, it is. And it's something that I'm thinking about as well. Um, will it be carried forward? How it will be carried forward? It's all something that I ask myself every day, because um, in when in this work maze, I am able to do this because of Veena, who is guiding me through this new phase, like who's helping me transition into it. Again, like I can't depend on her forever. And again, also this is a question I ask myself, and I don't have the answer to it yet. But yes, that's all I would say.
Um, to me, I think so, because this is the first performance that such a Billy Dance company will have as a like as an official company, that it's out there as an idea, not only as a thought, but like as an actual concrete thing that you're able to see and experience and whatnot. And I never had the opportunity to be the person in front of the room. I was always a dancer, a collaborator, so to be the actual person who gets to decide what to put on stage, what needs some filter, what needs to be done in a certain way, and whatnot. It is showing me the responsibilities that I will have as an artistic director, and as a someone who is trying to expand in this market and of the dance world. Honestly, it was just teaching me how I was going to teach, how I was going to speak to my collaborators, how I was trying to communicate to Deborah, to people that are behind the scenes, making this happen, and how to work respectfully with others that are making this to happen, because it's not only me, it's all of the people who I'm emailing back, who are giving me their schedules 2 weeks before the thing, so it really is teaching me how this work it's valuable for me, and that it's paying off, that I'm actually enjoying it, that I'm enjoying being a choreographer, that I'm enjoying being in my own piece, because I thought that was going to be somehow a little uncomfortable, not gonna lie. But just to have this space where I can collaborate with not only my colleagues but my friends, it just became how I want to achieve this such a big project, and how that's going to carry in the future when I work furthermore with other residencies or people around.
Yeah, you're at the beginning phase of the learning curve as a choreographer. And it's interesting because Sarabi's been doing this for a while, but in a different whole way. Still being the teacher making the choreography, but the vocabulary was very set and scored, and the stories were set and scored. And I think for both of you, the learning curve right now is, how do I do this? What am I asking of myself and of others, and how do I talk about it? And the surprises that will come, I mean, I'm sure maybe Sarabi said this more, but that moment when somebody looks at you and goes, I don't want to do this, or what are you talking about, or any kind of resistance, dealing with resistance in the building of something. It's easy when everybody goes, this is great, I love it, let's make it. It's much more interesting sometimes, and you end up someplace you might again not have expected, when they go, well, what about this? And it's a veer in some direction that you just couldn't imagine. But it is interesting to me that both of you are in moments that require a certain kind of courage. I mean, to become an artistic director, to realize that you are taking on the mantle, and it looks really good from the other side when you just see this pretty thing on stage and go, well, I want to stand up there and look nice and make this. But then the reality of it is it ain't pretty all the time making it. It's just not. It's real life. It has ups and downs. And Robbie's in that place where this is what I've done my whole life, this is what I know how to do, but it's not speaking to me in the way that these questions are. How do I do this? How do I marry these things? And I think you're both going to end up someplace different than what you expect. That's the cool thing, is don't have any expectations. Give yourself all that room to explore, because you're both working in really, really interesting areas and thinking about many things that are similar, just from, culturally different points of view, but your cultures bring these things up, and how you share them with people, and who your dancers are, and what they want to do. I mean, that's a question for me, Sarabi, is at some point, are you going to be inviting people in? You've talked about this a little bit. What if they don't have your background at all, and you're asking them to investigate the same questions? What would that look like? And you are already doing that, Hector, in your piece, and I'm just really curious to see how what you think about moves forward as you make your work. Because I think there's a whole, as with most things, as you learn how to do it, new questions reveal themselves. You get used to certain ways. I work like this. I can talk about the fact that I know I can sort of describe what I do, but when people say to me, is this codified? And I think, no, because it's not always the same. The questions I ask, how I ask questions of the dancers, that's an ongoing process. But what comes out of it isn't necessarily, I didn't know what it was going to be. That's the cool thing for me. Where we end up together. And I think you're doing that, Sarabi, with your collaborators, and Hector, you're doing that with your dancers. Have they said anything to you, either your collaborators or your dancers, about what this experience is like for them?
To me, it has been really gratifying and very nice every time we meet in the studio. Brooke and Sydney have been just the sweetest every time they come. They come excited to work. They come present. Since day one, I think one of my collaborators was a little bit hesitant of like, oh my God, I'm 5 minutes late. I'm so sorry, so to say like, it's okay, like I understand you're human things happen. Just come on in and like, let's make art, to have that just like disclaimer since the beginning have been just really nice to have, that we're both expected just to be present, be where our attention needs to be, but to always collaborate in this art form, I think. And they just been really, really nice. So I don't have anything bad to say, but the greatest things about Brooke and Sydney, I think they're both professional women who can do wonderful things with their art and their technique, and all of their ideas that also come in the same, with nice intentions to make this piece the best that it can be. I think has been just very gratifying to me as a choreographer and as a friend as well, because collaborating with friends isn't always easy or always as smooth as one would plan to be. But having them there with me and trying to figure it out what I want to do, and them, kind of following, but also telling me advice and ideas so I don't go alone. And through this process, it's really nice. Also for COVID reasons and other stuff like that, we haven't been able to meet every now and then in the studio together. So I've been bringing other people in, like Hermes Membreño, who is my roommate and sister here in San Francisco, and my boyfriend Omar Ramirez, to also come and try. So non-dancers, just to specify, they're non-trained dancers, I would say, to help me create movement that became something that is not just technical but just human and very to the soul, because we were doing poetry and creating movement out of it. So all the collaborators that have been part of this journey have been just helpful and really loving towards the piece and towards the whole process that this Studio 210 has been.
Um, for me, for us, our collaboration sessions are like therapy sessions. It's true. There have been, we've gotten emotional through the sessions. There have been times where we've opened up. We've had great laughs. We have made beautiful things. We are learning constantly. So I would say these sessions definitely have been like therapy sessions, because it not only is creating art, but is also making a difference in our lives. So that is for sure, and it's true for me personally, for sure.
I think it's been really wonderful to me listening to the two of you as we've talked week by week about sort of what you get from your collaborators and how open you both are to them. I was really struck with Hector when he was bringing in people who weren't dancers and asking them the questions he would have been asking the dancers, and then absorbing what their responses were into the work. I thought that was very smart and a very pretty advanced openness in a young choreographer. I mean, sometimes people are very nervous about being the choreographer, and they have the way it has to be because they're so nervous. And you were just like, well, this is what I got. This is what I'm going to work with. And the fact that you came out with things that you really like that have fed you in the process is really great. And meeting Sarabi's director was fabulous. She's smart and interesting and thoughtful, and really, I thought the conversations between you were really good. I mean, she's really interested in your taking whatever she's thinking about and making it into your work. And then you have this wonderful voice. The woman who's singing has a great voice, and it's so interesting to me because the Indian melody line is so different than a Western melody line, and it's just been fascinating to just listen to how she bends notes while she's responding to something. And I was watching her improvise in her singing while Sarabi was moving, improvising, and the singers don't get to improvise either. So it was really, I realized I was watching two forms experimenting at the same time, which is really cool, and really, it was really wonderful to watch. So, and I've watched as Hector has built these pieces, and these two women are very different as movers that he's working with. And I can't wait to see all of them together, because it's going to be a great looking, they're very different looking, the three of them. So that in and of itself will be an interesting thing to see. And I think you both, I don't think I realized when I read your proposals how kind of similar some of your investigations are for yourselves. I mean, not in the specifics, but in this is where I am in my life, and this is what I'm trying to understand, and this is how I'm going about it. Then with these little threads like the labyrinth maze, and beauty as part of the discussion. Is there anything that you guys want to add to this? Is there anything that you want people to know about this? Do you think that this kind of work and the way you're working will continue as you go forward?
Um, Nothing much to add, but I would really appreciate everyone watching here to come and witness and ask us questions, give us feedback to develop this work further and to help us create more such work, because it's important to get the audience involved in this.
And just to echo that as well, to keep supporting Deborah Slater and Studio 210 Summer Residency, it really brings up the opportunity for us artists to still be in the city, still have to create some work, and still be able to afford being here. It really makes a difference. Um, and just to show the appreciation to all of those who make this possible. Yeah, just thank you, and I would love to see you in the performance the 29th and 30th. And yes.
So there's one last question that I want to make sure I get in here. And so I
Oh,
know
of course.
it's from Jess about asking if you were surprised by your collaborator responses or your own responses to something emotional that has bubbled up.
Well, like I said, I am talking about love, and love. It's already an emotion and a choice as well, mostly choice to love someone. But that comes with a lot of emotional things attached to it, you know. So I to know their umbrella and their spectrum of what they think love can land. It's really interesting because I'm connecting with them in a deeper level where I'm getting to know to understand how they see love, how they view it, how they move to it. So I think that has been really interesting and emotional for me to know that that it exists in people's body, and once you ask them to take it out and show it to you, they're more than happy to do it because it comes from a place of love and care. And yeah, it makes them feel. I feel like it has made me feel visible in terms of like just sharing the love and receiving it back and having this two-way conversation with the collaborator. It really opens up just the ideas even more because you're sharing emotions and the present with each other. So that's already a big thing, I would say.
Um, yes, I would say with whatever emotional whatever emotions have bubbled up through this process of collaboration, I feel like myself and I felt my collaborators also being completely present and in sync. Whether the rest, I mean, like usually when if say my musician Rupa, if she's singing, responding to my movement, somehow it, like, even though we both are improvising, it just syncs. It just, we both are aligned, we both are present, and in that moment, even though we are not seeing each other, we are very much present then there. So I wouldn't call it a surprise. It's just, I mean, when you think back, look back now, like I'm surprised, like how did we get all synced up there? Like didn't even know that this could, we were going to do this, but somehow we all synced in. So that's a surprise now, but at that point we were very present.
Here, I do want to say to both of you that I think you've done very well in the trust that your collaborators have in you and you in them, because that allows an opening. Because without that, people they just can't open up in a space they don't feel safe. So bravo to both of you as collaborators for making people feel safe enough to open. I think that's a big deal. And it's something to remember, because there are times when you get frazzled. You have to remember that you have created this environment and it will feed you too. I mean, you both know that right now. But as you go along and you make these pieces and it gets more elaborate and there's more people and less time, and lots of money involved. It can be stressful, and you just have to remember this is the core of your work that you're talking about right now. Literally the heart of your work that you're working in. And I think you're both doing a really wonderful job about doing this investigation in this way, because this is how you build yourself as an artist, and this is how you do your work. It's really good. And thank you, because I appreciate the seriousness with which you both have taken the residency. It really is, it's wonderful to watch someone taking advantage of this thing. Because I know residencies have meant a lot to me in my life, and it's a gift. You just don't get gifts like this too often. So I really appreciate how much you guys honor it. And thank you. And it's my pleasure to have you both. It's really wonderful. Is there anything else you want to add, Miss Lydia, about the show itself or anything like that?
No, it was lovely to hear both of you talk about your work and what we can expect to see, some themes and concepts in the coming weeks. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. As we've mentioned, the culminating performance is July 29th and 30th. It will be live streamed on YouTube just like today, and there will also be a limited number of in-person tickets available. So be sure to get those early. There's only 20 per night, and you must reserve them in advance. So I will post the links to all of the ticketing in the chat, and so you can go get a ticket right now if you're feeling inspired. Otherwise, thank you all so much, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Good job, you guys. Did very well. Cool.